Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and a very good morning to everyone. Inshallah, today my team and I will be presenting one of the constitutional principles, which is the rules of law, or also known as the regula iuris. It is a Latin word which also means rules of law. As you can see, here are the names of the members in our group. Our group consists of 4 members. Here are the contents that will be presented in our presentation. First, we have introduction, second summary, third analysis, and fourth conclusion. So without further ado, let's proceed with the introduction.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Shura Akila binti Abdul Halim and my matric number is 202874. Moving on to the first contents of this topic, introduction by the definition of it. Okay, firstly, the term rule of law derived from the French phrase "la principe de l'égalité," the principle of legality, which refers to a government based on principles of law and not of men. The term implies that every citizen is subject to the law as the ruler is above the law. Secondly, rule of law means that law is supreme and is above every individual. No individual, regardless of his or her status, is above the law. The rule of law implies that government authority may only be exercised in accordance with the written laws. For example, in Malaysia, they have federal constitutions based on Article 4 Clause 1 mentioned that this constitution is the supreme law of the federation. So the government, in order to do some sort activity in government need to follow or refer to the federal constitutions to regulate their country. Next, moving on to the concepts of rule of law. We found 4 concepts for rule of law, one from Aristotle and other 3 from Evidice, who is one of British jurists in the 19th century. Okay, firstly, from the concepts from Aristotle. Aristotle mentioned that the rule of law was preferable to that of any individual. This in power should be subject to some sort of higher law and should govern accordance with the higher law. For example, in Malaysia, they have federal constitution, which is the supreme law, the higher law for their govern follow the higher law to govern that country. Okay, second, Evidice, the first concept from Evidice, mentioned that the rule of law requires that no one be punished except for a conduct which represents a clear breach of law. Okay, this rule implies that all laws must be open, clear, prospective in nature. The second concept from Evidice about rule of law. No one is above the law and everyone is subject to the law. Okay, for example, even someone has a higher position in government, they can't do anything without referring to the higher law. For example, in Malaysia, federal constitution. And they also cannot use the power given to at will because their powers have limitation. Okay, moving on to the third concept by Evidice. Expressed that the rights of individuals were determined by and dependent upon the ordinary law of the land as developed by the ordinary courts adjudicating in particular cases. Next, the examples of rule of law based on Federal Constitution of Malaysia. Okay, firstly, Article 7 Clause 1. No person shall be punished for an omission which has not punishable by law, based on one of Dice's concepts of rule of law, said that all laws must be open and clear, and someone can imply new punishment follows his will. Secondly, Article 7 Clause 2. A person who has been acquitted of an offence cannot be tried for the same offence for more than once. And third, Article 8 Clause 1. Legal equality. All persons are equal before the law and entitled to the equal protection of the law. It can be related with one of Dice's concepts in rule of law, which is about the rights of the individual.
Next, we move on to the summary of the case. In this presentation, our team chose the case about Royal Commission of Inquiry into the Lingam video clip. As you can see in this slide, the picture is our senior lawyer, Datuk Wiki Lingam. It all started in 2007 when Malaysia was shocked by controversial videotape over the appointment of judges or the judges fixing scandal by senior lawyer Datuk Wiki Lingam. The video clip, which surfaced on online video sharing site YouTube, contained a controversial material relating to the judge fixing scandal. As for your information, the video still exists today in YouTube and you can see it anytime as you will. If you see the video, we can see that Datuk Wiki Lingam purportedly talking about the appointment and factionalism among the senior judges in our country over the mobile phone with the Ahmad Fairuz Sheikh Abdul Halim, which was the number 3 judge in the country. Also in that video, sadly, there are also a few big names mentioned in the involvement of the judge fixing scandal, including our former Prime Minister Mahathir Mohamad and our famous tycoon Datuk Vincent Tan. After the video of Datuk Wiki Lingam hit our country, the Royal Commission of Inquiry was formed by government to investigate Wiki Lingam video clip under Section 2 of the Commission of Inquiry Act 1915 Act 119. For your information, Royal Commission Inquiry or RCI is a statutory body or the organisation that is power given directly by the YDPA in order to investigate that particular case. Basically, RCI was formed to investigate the case that concerning our public importance. After that, 998-page Royal Commission of Inquiry RCI report was released to the public on May 20, 2008, ruled that the video clip was genuine. And because of that, Datuk Wiki Lingam was struck off from the role of advocates and solicitors on November 6, 2015, when the Advocates and the Solicitors Disciplinary Board found him liable for professional misconduct for allegedly conspiring with the several others to influence judicial appointments. Therefore, it is true that Datuk Wiki Lingam used his influence in order to set up the judicial appointments, and because of that, Datuk Wiki Lingam was barred from practicing the law even though he is lawyer. Therefore, we can conclude that simply there is no one can escape the law no matter who is he, because our country is practicing the rule of law, the concept rule of law, which is no one can above the law. That's all from me. Thank you.
Okay, now we are going to take a look at the analysis or the relation between the report and the assigned topic. So the news reported that Wiki Lingam had conspired with various parties to interfere with or influence judicial appointments, together with a prominent businessman, a deputy minister, and also the former prime minister, which was Tun Mahathir. The importance and significance of judicial appointments has been stated or outlined under Article 122B, Clause 1 of the Federal Constitution. The rule of law actually requires judicial independence, which means the ability of court and judges to perform their duties uh, free of influence or control by other actors, whether governmental or private, so that people can take their dispute to court and have them resolved according to law. Without, without judicial independence, the rule of law principles applying equally to all without discrimination will be undermined. However, if the judicial appointments have an improper influence from the other branches like executive or legislature, it will have an impact on the judiciary's independence, and any attempt by the private lawyers with private interests to subvert or influence judicial appointments in their favor will violate the sanctity of this constitutional provision. The principal role of judiciary is to protect rule of law and ensure supremacy of law. It safeguards rights of the individual, settles disputes in accordance with the law, and ensures that democracy doesn't give way to individual or group dictatorship. The rule of law, also defended by an independent judiciary, plays a crucial function
by ensuring that civil and political rights and civil liberties are safe, and that the equality and dignity all of citizens are not at risk.
Moving on to the last part, which is the conclusion. So what can we conclude from this topic is the principle of rule of law plays an important role in nurturing a good society as well as a harmonious country free from any corruption. This doctrine also makes sure that no one is above the law, and it applies to everyone whether they are citizens or politicians. One of the famous words quoted from Lord Denning in Guriet, which is, "Be you ever so high, the law is above you." So this phrase has been used since the 16th century, and the best modern English interpretation for it is, no matter how high you are, the law is still above you. Here are some of the personal opinions stated for this topic. First, in order to successfully form a nation where all of the citizens are under the law and no such heinous crime could be committed, implementing the constitutional principle, which is the rule of law, is an obligation. Second, when citizens are not under the law, they could do anything they want to anyone, arbitrarily, which is why it is very important to have constitutional principles alongside the nation's government. Last but not least, with the existence of it, the crime rate among citizens would be limited, or it could totally be stopped, as there are rules that need to be abided. That's it from us. Thank you so much for listening, and Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.